Hello and welcome to another installment of CinemaDemocratica.com's video movie review segment. I'm the Key Grip, and today we're looking at Gaspar Noé's subversive character essay from 1998, I Stand Alone, starring Philippe Nahon. Gaspar Noé is nothing if not an extraordinary stylist, especially when it comes to graphic depictions of sexual assault and rootless bloodshed. Among his visually avant-garde and topically arresting writer-director credits may be found the still shocking Irreversible, a 2002 story of a man seeking brutal vengeance for the rape of his girlfriend, told entirely in reverse chronological order. 6 years later, he also wrote and directed the even more arabesque Enter the Void, the story of a teenage drug dealer whose unexplained murder at the film's outset frees his soul to harass those who've been tormenting his sister. With such emotionally raw subject matter as his stock in trade, it seemed likely that Noé's earlier films might afford an even deeper connection with their audience, in much the same way that the earthy techniques adopted by Tarantino in making Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction have never quite been recaptured in his later, higher-budget works. And the verdict for Noé on this score is largely, if fitfully, affirmative. I Stand Alone is itself a sequel, returning several years later to the storyline from Noé's 1991 effort Carne, in which a Parisian butcher is convicted for stabbing a man after misunderstanding his mute daughter's revelation of her first period. In the years since, the butcher, played by Nahon, has taken a matronly unattractive but modestly well-to-do girlfriend, impregnated her, and with no other prospects followed her to Lille with her assurance that together they will open a butcher shop there as soon as they're married. But when the girlfriend's live-in mother begins arranging job interviews to hold him over, the butcher's self-respect can take no more and he snaps, unleashing a barrage of violence on both women, eventually causing his girlfriend to miscarry. He flees back to Paris, but having lost his benefactor, is forced to grovel for assistance from his pre-prison social network, none of whom seem inclined to help, or for that matter act even all that glad to see him. Eventually, the quest for self-support brings the butcher to the slaughterhouse from which he'd once purchased his own inventory, where the aging manager tells him that he might be able to squeeze him in someplace in about a month. Seething at this final indignity, the butcher storms out, thence to descend into ever deeper cycles of resentment, culminating with the decision to retrieve his daughter from the asylum where she's been living in order to do to her God only knows what. All of Noé's films are challenging to watch, and all of them include at least some measure of empathy in spite of ourselves, as if the director were commenting less on the social contexts of his plot lines and more on our own reflexive impulse to rubberneck at car crashes. The difficulty I have with his efforts lies in the highly, often self-consciously stylized depictions of his most disturbing content, fetishizing the sex and violence in his films with such bizarrely self-attention-calling ploys as a white-on-black 30-second countdown imploring everyone to leave the theater before the start of the next scene. If Lars von Trier has taught us anything, it's that an unflinching portrayal of something arrestingly brutal can be a very effective means of sowing empathy, if not quite sympathy, for a character on the screen. But in von Trier's case, even the most highly affected of the depictions themselves manages to rarefy rather than detract from the overall aesthetic, even when the events being depicted are very intensely arresting indeed. By such means, our pre-investment in the characters, something Noé handles every bit as well as von Trier, can bubble to the surface of our unease instead of competing with a droning awareness of the stylistic choices employed for what was supposed to be the most involving moment of the film. Still, Noé's movies are always intense, often deeply unsettling, periodically even thought-provoking, and I Stand Alone manages to succeed in all these areas despite the best efforts of the filmmaker. In his unschooled, bad judgment-laced way, we can't help feel that the pathetic butcher is somehow just like us, or at least just like that part of us that feels unschooled and laced with bad judgment. For this reason am I able still to recommend this movie, though clearly not for anyone faint of heart. When the day comes that a film lover is ready to be shocked and still experience a complete motion picture, he won't feel cheated in either category by the choice of I Stand Alone, even if one of those two categories takes needless primacy above the other. The Key Grip gives I Stand Alone 3 bald heads out of 5. For CinemaDemocratica.com, I'm Dave O'Gorman. Thanks for watching.